the code for the traffic light. Actually, the code should be almost the same that the code from the previous video. But I want to take advantage of this situation in order to show you a new technique, something that might be useful for further challenges, because sometimes it's hard for me to remember the port that I am using for any output or input. If you remember, when I used this digital write instruction, usually here I used the number of the port that I wanted to turn on or turn off. Do you remember? I used port 0, or maybe I used port 1. So my instruction was like this. But in this case, I am using labels. You see, I am using the red label, the yellow label, or the green label. So because it could be hard for me to remember, okay, I connected the red LED into my port number 0, and I connected my yellow LED into the port number 1, and so on. Sometimes it can be difficult for me to remember. So instead of remembering the port that I used for a certain connection, I can use these labels. And for this, we need to create these labels. So this creation goes outside of the void loop, the setup loop, and the loop block. Actually, the setup block and the void loop. It goes outside. You see, it's outside because this is some kind of configuration. So I'm going to create my label, and I'm going to use integer values because I'm going to use 0, 1, 2, or 3. Yes, I know for mathematicians, usually 0 is not an integer, and we have a lot of discussions. But right now, here on programming, for us, 0 is integer. So we are not going to start that kind of discussions. So, because I'm going to use integer values, I specify that my variable is going to be an integer, int. And then I need to write the label name that I am going to use. For example, I am going to use pin button because this is the name I want to provide to my label. I can change the label, it's up to you. You can use whatever label that you want. For example, you can only write button, or you can write input. It's up to you. This is for you to remember. So for me, I used red, yellow, and green. But remember that you need to follow the proper spelling of your label. If you use capital letters, you need to use capital letters. If you use lowercase letters, you need to use lowercase letters, and you need to use the capital letters when you use capital letters. You need to write it exactly the same way that you did it during the configuration. So, if you remember from the circuit, I say that my red light is going to be connected to port 0, the yellow one is going to be connected to the port number 1, the green to 2, and my button is going to be connected to port number 3. So this is the way I create my labels. So now instead of using port 0, 1, 2, or 3, I'm going to use pin button, red, yellow, or green. So this is exactly the same as if I wrote something like this. But maybe for you it's easier to remember pin button instead of saying, oh, what was the number of the port? Oh, I don't remember. So it's up to you. This might be useful for you. So again, I need to specify that my pin mode, I need to specify the pin mode. And so the number of the pin is pin button. But I say to the program, hey, when I use pin button, you need to change pin button for number 3. So in here, I guess the last explanation was a mistake. I wrote 0 and it has to be 3. So I'm sorry. It has to be 3 and it is going to be an input. So my port number 0 is going to be an output. The number 1 is an output, and so on. And now I need to again specify a digital value for my input. If you remember, we used this conditional on previous challenge, but now I want to use another technique. So I want to create an integer variable that is called state button. And this state button memory, remember, a variable, it's a memory, a part of a memory. I want you to remember the box. I explained you that a variable, it's like a box when you can put any value, any data that you are going to use later. So in this case, the name of this box is a state button, because here I'm going to store the value of my button. Remember, it can be 0 if I don't press the button, or 1 if I press the button. And then the value that is going to be stored into this box, into this variable, it's going to be the digital reading from port number 3, correct? And then if the value that I store on state button is equals to 1, that means that I press the button, the program should start. So it should start with green light high, yellow low, and red low. And then I need to wait for 5 seconds after this change to yellow high, green low, and red low. And after 2 seconds, again I got the red high, yellow low, and green low. Remember, this is to specify the output. And also I have the condition: if I didn't press anything, you remember the else condition, it's the other condition not specified in the if conditional. And because this is a digital input, we only have 2 options: 1 or 0. So I don't need to specify if state button equals to 0, because this option, this instruction, is going to consider all the other situation that was not specified. And the only one not specified situation is if state button is equals to 0. So if state button is equals to 0, I'm going to turn off all my LEDs. And that's it. Really easy, right? Well, I hope you enjoyed this video, and see you the next time.